Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Inspiring Thoughts podcast today. We're delighted to have Kathleen Cushnie with us. So Kathleen is from Voice in Education, also a podcaster and also a deputy head. So her life is full of great stuff. So we're lucky to have Kathleen with us today. So Kathleen, great to have us on the podcast with us.
Thank you for having me, Stephen. It's good to be here.
Yeah, and we nearly didn't have today because Kathleen unfortunately had a bit of a power cut last night. But we've got you here today, which is great. So I'm super
I'm
excited.
here. It's all working. So let's go.
Yeah.
Let's have a conversation. It's not normal to have a power cut, but it was off for some time. So I'm here now. So
And I found Kathleen's guilty pleasure is candles. So I found that out as well. So that's a good thing.
yeah, not just for the power cuts, also for cozy time.
Yeah, cozy. Yeah, it's lovely. It's very nice. So we're delighted to have Kathleen with us today. So we're looking at mastering the art of coaching. And I know it's really, really important to your heart, important to me as well. And also something about helping educational leaders is super, super important. And that's why we've got Voice in Education, the work that you do there. So our viewers like to be a bit nosy and go, can you tell us a bit about your career? How did you get into education? Those kind of things. So would you just mind give us a little bit of sharing how you got into education in the first place, Kathleen?
Yeah, of course. So I got into education. So in education, this is my second career. So I used to work in music publishing prior to working in education. Wow. Yeah. So complete pivot. So that pivot happened when I had my son and I thought, okay, I need to do something different. I've always wanted, I believe deep down, to work with children and to serve in that way, to kind of give children, the cliche life chances. But yeah, I enjoy working with children and developing those relationships. So I pivoted into education, and I think about it now, next year, that'll be 20 years.
Oh, wow.
So I started to train in 2006, then started what they called the NQT year, which is newly qualified teacher, did that. And then the rest is history. I started to progress into leadership, was at my first school for about, say, I think it was like 7 to 8 years, had a secondment at another school, then realised actually that school's very different. I want to try something very different and applied for a school. And that's where I am now. So I've been in my current school for 10 years as a deputy head teacher. And I'm really, really enjoying it. So along the years, I've been a consultant lead teacher and going into schools and developing and working with leaders in terms of developing the English or curriculum and so on. And now in my school, what I'm doing is I hold the umbrella of coaching and mentoring, so training up middle leaders, ECTs, looking after them as well, and also develop the curriculum. And we're a forward-thinking school, so we're always thinking of new ideas and develop the curriculum that way.
Yeah, and it's fantastic to see your passion. And I know you said about a cliche, but cliches are good actually to go, this, I've got a purpose. This is what I suddenly woke up one day and went, actually, that's what I want to do. Give back to the society and give back to work and see kind of children flourish. And I bet every day is different.
Every day is completely, you can't, we laugh actually because there's a team of us, our headship team, we laugh at the things that happen because sometimes teachers within the classroom have no idea what's actually happening outside. There is so much going on, like literally feel like we're putting out fires or really making sure that things are okay. So no day is the same, and it's not just a flippant comment. No day is the same, and it's interesting and it's funny as well. I mean, we could write a sitcom on the things that happen in school life. It's really funny. So that's what I do in the day job. So that's my full-time role, but I also have other aspects linked to education. So like you spoke about the Voice in Education. So I started that during COVID. A year later, the podcast was born because I wanted to give an opportunity for people to voice their understanding of the education, because it's different for different people. Different schools are completely different environment, different culture. And it's not just about school either. There's other things going on in the education world that I wanted to kind of bring a voice to, so people are aware of that. I'm also a trustee for a UK charity that empowers maternity and paternity teachers. Teachers on maternity and paternity leave. So I'm a trustee for that charity as well. So they advocate for the rights of for continuing professional development. While you're on maternity or paternity leave, and also that you get your rights when you go back to school. and not
Yes.
everyone's aware of those rights as well. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's not always the school that are aware of those rights. So it's empowering those that are on
Yeah.
maternity or paternity leave to go on and get what they're entitled to.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, I'm also a governor at a primary school too.
Fab. So we're lucky to have you today in your busy schedule.
Yeah, it's
And
half term.
it's good job it's half term, isn't it? I was going to say, good job
Yeah.
it's half term
Yeah.
from that point of view. So, but we're delighted. And also the bit about, like from our background is we like to keep busy. We work in a very broad area. We like to be busy. We find it inquisitive to be part of things and keep learning. And I know that's where we've connected well, about that keep development and learning, to keep pushing yourself from that point of view. So I know we talked about, and today is about mastering the art of coaching. So a lot of people get a bit confused between coaching and mentoring. In your words, what would you see is kind of the clear difference between coaching and mentoring?
Okay, I'm going to start off with what the similarities are and why people kind of sometimes, well, particularly in the education world, use them synonymously.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
they say,
Yeah.
oh,
Yes.
coaching and mentoring. Oh, okay, let's go to your mentor and they're going to coach and mentor you. Yeah, but
Yeah.
we've got to separate the two because they're not the same. Both
Yeah.
move you forward and are developmental processes, but they don't do the same thing. So if I think about coaching is more kind of short-term focus, so it's looking at a particular issue, or it may be a range of issues, but it's kind of short focus sessions, and it may be six weeks kind of really focusing on that session. It may be leadership development, maybe managing difficult conversations with your parents or the pupils or so on, or behavior management, for example, in the educational world. Take that out of, into corporate, same things apply, don't they? They're managing difficult conversations, leadership management, and so on.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're looking at mentorship, it's more about that long-term development process. So coaching is short-term, focus about small things and moving you forward, but it's the non-directive element of it that I think is quite important to stress. It's more about partnering with the person that you're working with and getting them to kind of see through, asking them the right relevant questions, providing that safe space for them to be able to kind of identify what it is that they need to work on, and taking them and literally guiding them through that process so they can see that they have the answers within. Whereas mentoring is more about you showing them, so you are the expert. So you're the expert in that situation if you are the mentor, showing and guiding the person that you're working with of how to do things. So you've got that kind of that experience to be able to share back, and it's more directive. So this is what I did. You could do it like this, and that's where the coaching and mentoring things get blurred, because in the educational world, you're saying, okay, so this is what I did. I do it like this, blah, blah, blah. How could you approach this? And then you slip into the coaching element through those conversations. Whereas the mentoring is more long-term. So for example, ECTs in schools for 2 years. So it's early career teacher. They rebranded that a few years ago. So you're an early career teacher for 2 years and you have a mentor assigned to you, and they take you through that process. So they're mentoring you, guiding through how to be a teacher, instructional coaching and so on. Now, that is over the long term. They're showing you, while the coaching part comes in, is where they're able to then guide you through specific short things that they've identified. So those target goals. I would say both are transformational. Depending on obviously how that's delivered. The relationship again is very important, because you could have a mentor that's really good at what they do, but it's how they disseminate that information to you in that supportive role. So both are supportive in terms of development, but there's a clear distinction. And I think the easiest way to look at it is where coaching is more about, I would say, coaching kind of, how can I pull it? Coaching kind of supports you to find the answers within. And it seeks permission to offer suggestions, whereas mentoring kind of demonstrates suggestions and offers solutions. So it's a very different. And I think as a coach, you kind of you notice the symptoms. So while you're talking with your mentee, let's call it mentee for this purpose of this conversation, while you're talking with your mentee or your client, you may notice the symptoms, but you don't give a diagnosis. Whereas when you're actually in that mentoring situation, you may be, I've just looked at your lesson, or I've just seen that you've done this. Perhaps this could be achieved if you did this. It's much more directive, and you can actually call out what the issue is. So you could say, actually, it's behavior management, it's the classroom management. I can see that you're having challenging difficulties with managing difficult conversations, whereas in a coaching conversation, that comes through the person. I think that's that's it really. And I would say both are flexible and evolving.
Yeah.
And it relies on a really strong relationship in order for
Yeah.
it to work successfully.
Yeah, and I think the key bit there we just picked up about strong relationship. So whether you're a mentor or a coach, it's about the relationship you have with the client, colleague, teacher, etc. It's about that strong relationship, because that person will open up to you. And then I find it. So our style of working is a hybrid. So we do coaching and mentoring. We kind of merge them, but we know when to use the right technique. Because if you've got somebody that comes to you and says, "Look, I need to know how to put A and B together," and that's what I've never done it before. If you suddenly start to coach, the person's going to go, I just need to know. Just tell me how to put A plus B, and I just need to do it, and then that'll unblock me. And that's where I think the good coaches and mentors go, right, actually, that's mentoring. I'm going to fall into that bit now, but later on, I'm going to start to, once they've got it, how do I bring in my coaching techniques, etc. So, and I love the bit about bringing in directive, non-directive, so people really understand from that point of view. And I think also when people are new, so you said the ECTs, that when they're new to role, if you try to coach, they're going to go, well, I've never done this before. I don't know what I'm doing. So that's that mentor relationship that might fall into coaching later on.
Yes, completely. Yeah,
But it's
you're right
exciting
there.
though, isn't it?
Yeah, it is exciting. It is, and it's crucial as well. I think, to be honest, I think you have in education world. You have your mentor for the first 2 years, and I just think, well, really, everyone needs a mentor. Everyone should have a mentor, because it's always great to have someone that's just a little bit more ahead of you, so you kind of have an idea of where you could go and just have that guidance. I think it's crucial.
Yes.
And that's why people do it for themselves, don't they? They have if they like to learn, have a mentor.
Well, it's the bit there, I think, the power to learn, keep moving forward. That's where you want to surround yourself with people better than you, etc. To keep challenging your mind. And I love it. So with coaching, could you give us a time, either coaching or mentoring, that had a profound impact on your life? And I'll share with, I know, when coaching suddenly become alive for me, is there a time that you suddenly went, oh, wow, coaching and mentoring really hit me?
Yeah. So there are plenty of times where it has hit me. I've been fortunate enough to have really great coaches over the years. But I'm going to go back to the first time where this just one talk. I'm a visual learner, actually. I think it's important to say I'm very visual. So in my head, things are movies, literally Minority Report, shifting things around. So that's kind of how I work. So I had a coach, and I was experiencing overwhelm, which many educational leaders do. I was experiencing that, and he said, it's just he said, it's great, you've just got this awareness of it. And he said, that's the first point. And we all know that's the first point, having an awareness. You're able then to kind of stop and take a look. But he introduced the awareness table to me. I don't know if he made it up or it's an actual tool, because I've never come across it again. But I've taken this, and this is what I run with in my life. So he said, think of it as a table. Immediately it worked for me, because I'm visual. So now when I'm feeling whatever it is, overwhelm, and again, expressing that overwhelm is an umbrella for plethora of emotions, and that's what the problem is. So when I'm experiencing that overwhelm, I can pull it on the table and literally start to sort and organize. I'm able to sort, prioritize, and compartmentalize things. So pull it down, and I'm like, okay, I can do that. That can go over there. Compartmentalize that, and do it. And I'm literally shifting things around, and that's I still use. So that was from my first coaching session. So when you think about what has been the thing that has most impacted you in coaching, it's that one tool. Having that awareness table has enabled me to kind of empty my mind, so I can place things down and I can work. It's almost, it literally is taking it out of my head, and then I can work. It gives me that mental capacity to tackle then whatever it is, or seek quite clearly. So I would say, that's a profound impact on my life and career, because you're not just going to use it in your daily life at work, are you? I use it for everything. Just like I can't deal, because your life is running concurrently with work. Sometimes they overlap, sometimes that both have large things that you've got to deal with. Because how are you going to do it? So I can compartmentalize, literally split my awareness table, and I have work over here, and I think, and I can see the balance. I think, oh no, it's not right. I'm going to try and think about this. I can put that over there. I don't need to deal with that right now. And it's it's a life changer, an
Yeah.
absolute life changer. Simple tool, and that's the power of coaching, isn't it?
Yes.
Someone enabling you to see things from a different perspective. And I think that, for those that don't have coaching, I think it's an essential tool for everybody to have in their lives, because, different perspective is a completely different, opens up the door to different possibilities, I would say.
Yeah.
So, I think knowledge as well, liberation. Without that knowledge, you don't know what to do to get through it. So that having that understanding is imperative, I think.
And it's and I just love the bit there about your coach obviously knew the questions to ask because of being a visual person, and that's that chemistry. When you first get together, let me try and understand the person. Are they audio, kinesthetic? Are they visual? So how do I base my questions? That's a really good coach that really understands the colleague. And I just think I just saw your face and eyes when you went. It was a profound kind of moment. That's those are the bits where you go, right, we've unlocked that potential for that for the client or the colleague. And I remember when I with coaching. So I was recommended a coach, and I thought, and it was back in my career when I was in the bank. And I didn't really know where I was going with my career, that kind of stuff. And my career moved quickly, but it just got to a point of like, I'm not really getting where I'm going. And I had a coach, and do you know what unlocked it for me? His name was Eric, really, really great guy. Unlocked it for me was time. That gave me time to breathe and talk. And actually, he built up enormous trust with me that I'm not one of those people to share my emotions, but he allowed me to share my emotions. And it was, very humbling, but he allowed me to go, well, what is it actually you want from your career? What do you want to do? Where do you want to go? There's always people who told me where I was going, so I wasn't in control. So that gave me empowerment to go, what is it I want to do? But I look back and I thought, do you know what? He gave me time to breathe and think. And that's what I found the power of coaching for me. And I think that was about 15, 20 years ago. So that really started to unlock kind of what I thought in coaching. But it goes to show how you still remember those really good coaches, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think with everything, there's always one thing that you can take from, whether it's learning, training, there's always one thing you can take. And with that coach particularly, it was, we had a good relationship, but it was that awareness tool.
And I like coaches that which will go into our next question about people that challenge. So my style of coaching is challenging. So, and I make it clear to people that it could be uncomfortable, but not in a safe way. But we're going to challenge and push boundaries from that point of view. What would you say is the most misconceptions you find in coaching and mentoring, where people? And I know we started off at the beginning about people coping. Where would you say is the most misconceptions people get between coaching and mentoring?
I think the misconception, the key thing is that the coach will provide the answers. And the coach doesn't. The coach can help you and guide and support you there. But I think that is the key misconception. Whereas mentoring, sometimes actually I've had a client come to me and just want the answers. And I was like, well, do you want me to coach you, or do you want me to mentor you? And then she literally just said, just give me the answer. I said, okay, so I'm going to take my coaching hat off. I'm going to tell you what you could do. But as a coach, because that is what I am deep down, to be fair, is I like to enable others to be able to kind of look within and see things and work things out for themselves. So I said, you could do this. I gave it to her as an offer, and you could do this, or you could do something else. So I wanted to have that kind of coaching element there still, but kind of provide her with two options that she could do. So in terms of the misconceptions, I would say coaching's about guiding someone to understand and see the answers for themselves, knowing that they are the ones that are resourceful. It's within them. Whereas mentoring is much more directive. It's this is how it can be done. This is how you could do it. From my experience, it's that sharing of that expertise. With the mentoring, the client learns from the expert. With coaching, the client is the expert, and they're usually the expert of their own life. So it's for them to kind of work out through the questioning that the coaching is providing to kind of see what works for them. Because again, as a coach, we can't come with the answers, because everyone is very different. Their approach is different. The way they see things is different, which goes back to what you were saying about in the chemistry session and why that's so important. So the client, I think it's important through coaching to see the client as creative and whole and resourceful. They are the ones that are there to kind of, they can serve themselves. They just need a partner to help them to to see.
Yeah.
So I would say that's the biggest misconception there between the two. And also that, you know, with coaching, it's supposed to be a short burst of support.
Yes.
Sometimes if it goes on for too long, you can become reliant on the coach.
Yes.
Where it's not supposed to be that. It's supposed to be like, you know, you're walking along, there's someone, you're like, say you're doing a marathon, someone's just jogging along with you for a little bit, giving you a bit of support and getting you to think about things, and then okay, off you go, mate. You know, whereas mentorship is that person that you just check in with, guidance. This is what you could do, actually. Take a drink now. Get those electrolytes in. You know, but coaching is very different. Short bursts, you know, your best friend's there with you, guiding you along, encouragement. Whereas mentorship is that teacher that leads all along the way. So that's the biggest difference of the misconceptions. And I think how I address that really is through the chemistry sessions. So when I'm having a chemistry, or sometimes people call them discovery sessions, it's making sure that the client knows the difference and is aware of the importance of having that conversation. It's not just a conversation just to see, do you want to do some coaching, or do you want to see what we're going to work like? It's really getting through that conversation. It's usually about 30 minutes. It's understanding that person, meeting them where they are, understanding what works for them, whether they're visual, audio, kinesthetic, do they need to, you know, see things, or, you know, or can you paint a picture through metaphors, language? What's important to them? What are their values? What's how are you going to get through to them? Do they like challenge, or do they like a gentle challenge? Because for me, I like challenge, but in a gentle way. If it's overt for me, I kind of like, and it'll make me kind of, sometimes it can even make me spiral, or the opposite. But if the person doesn't know that, it's a bit of a tricky one. So I think gentle challenge works better for me. It's easy to maintain that balance. And it's important, I think, to clarify the coaching, that role, what it is and what it is not. So the person that's coming to you knows their kind of relationship and what you're there to offer them. And I suppose that the results are a matter of the client. You know, you can ask great questions. You can pose questions to the cows come home, but the results come from the client. And that in itself is interesting, because sometimes, you know, you get a lot of learning for both the coach and the client can get to learn a lot about themselves. So when you set the task and in your next session they haven't done it, well, what happened there? You know, how did you approach that? What could you do differently? You know, so there's a lot of understanding to come from what has been done and what hasn't been done. And I say, that is the key difference. Whereas, you know, like you alluded to before, you can just say to them, well, you know, if having a difficult conversation, here's a framework for that. This is what you could do, and it works every time. You know, obviously you could deviate depending on the responses that you're getting from the person, but that is a great framework. But you have to kind of get there.
And I find it which it's perfect there. So I found when I first started to learn coaching, so I thought I was a good coach. Then I realized when I did my qualification, I thought I was a really poor coach, because I was a coach, mentor, counselor, therapist. They were all coming to one. I was giving feedback when I thought I was coaching and all that kind of stuff. So it became messy, if that made sense. So you'd get people perform better, but they wouldn't stand on their own 2 feet. So then it would drop back again, and I think, well, why haven't they changed? But I'm coaching. And I see that kind of misconception of people think they're coaching, but they're not. They're either providing feedback, training, it could be anything. So I think that pure clarity helps people. And I think the other bit is you get people to stand on their own 2 feet through coaching, and then mentoring that comes as well. But I love the bit there. They are the resourceful self. We haven't got the answer. So I coach people from a range of backgrounds that I'm not a specialist in, but I can help them understand. Whereas the mentoring is actually, I can help you from a corporate business point of view, grow, so I can tell people from that point of view. So it's lovely to have that definition and clarity. And I think it goes back to that chemistry meeting, discovery meeting, rapport meeting. Sometimes you are not right for that colleague, and that colleague's not right for you. And I think that's the bit where we all have to be clear, and adults, that actually you may not connect, but be confident enough to go, actually, this probably isn't right for me, maybe not right for you, those kind of things. Let's work it through. I see that more often where coaches are desperate to coach people, but they don't put that maturity on it. that kind of lens, and then they get into a bit of a kerfuffle or muddle, or the coaching doesn't go well, they get disappointed. But that's just chemistry, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And that's why it's called that, discovery session. I want to discover about you, or chemistry
Yeah.
session. Do we work? Does it fit?
Yes.
And I think the best coaches as well recognize that, like you say, in that
Yeah.
session, why that session's so important, and
Yeah.
then can, pass you on to somebody else,
Yes.
just like recommend you to someone else because they think,
Yeah.
okay. So I've had that at school actually, where I coached a leader, and we got to the end of our session. So we had 6 sessions. We got to the end, and I knew there was more.
Yeah.
But it wasn't to do with work.
Yes.
So I knew they would benefit from coaching, outside of the
Yes.
work environment. So I recommended them to someone, and that worked a treat. So
Yes.
it was able, so sometimes they're outside, you obviously your life comes into work. So it was important for that to happen. Whereas in that capacity, I wasn't the best person for her in that. So I think it's really important to recognize when it works and when it doesn't. And I would say it's important to kind of think for yourself as a coach as well, asking yourself, really, really grounding yourself all the time, how can I be the best coach?
Yes.
But also asking that outwardly to the client. Well, how can I be the best coach for you? What is it that I can do to serve you? Because that's that's the role, that's how I see it anyway. That's the role that you're in. You are serving them, you're guiding them, you're enabling them. So I think that's an important question to ask.
No, spot on. No, absolutely spot on. So how do you approach, I know we talked about the discovery meeting, etc., but how do you approach building trust with a colleague or a client, etc., in the coaching and mentoring? How do you go about building trust, Kathleen?
Well, the first thing to understand is that trust takes time to build, doesn't it? It takes some time. You can't walk in and just think, oh, that's a nice person. They're quite nice. We're going to get on.
Yes.
No, they're very, very different things. You may get on in a workplace, you may get on, and if it's someone completely cold and you don't know them, you have to work on the trust.
Yes.
So that comes, again, by going back to the discovery or chemistry call, it comes through that understanding, meeting that person where they are. I think when someone can see that they have been seen and they are listened to, it's that's what's going to provide the foundation to build that trust. So, we always talk about that active listening, so sometimes you say listening, but you can listen. There's a difference between hearing and listening, isn't there? So correct. That active listening and that kind of contextual empathy as well, I'd say. So you can be empathetic and I understand what you're feeling, but do you understand in that context? That contextual empathy is so important. So I think when you're able to actively listen and understand their contextualized situation, I think that's so important in terms of building a trust. That person feels seen, they're able to open more, and then you're able to kind of build on that. So first of all, before that, obviously you need to provide that environment of that psychological safety where they're able to open up. And that might, if I think about in schools, like educational leaders work in high stake environments. There is so much going on. Like you said, there's no days ever the same. There's so much going on. There's all these little like thought bubbles all around your head. So much going on. So you have to create that judgment-free space because all schools are different. So you can't go in there with any assumptions. So in order to provide, build that trust, you kind of have to just come like judgment-free.
Yes.
I understand that it's busy, but it may be different for you. Tell me about blah, 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 blah. What is going on for you now? How do you feel about that? And I think it's about giving space to discuss challenges. And that's important. Also, I think about when you think about building those relationships, I think being upfront that there are going to be challenges, and that's the way it is. You can't run from it. And linking the challenge, you have to go through that challenge in order to grow. And through our conversations, what that cliche, you get out what you put in.
It's
true, isn't it?
It is true.
You can't run from that. So I think the best relationships come from both the client and the coachee or the mentee being open. Again, the other buzzwords that has kind of done its death a little bit now, being authentic, in that conversation. But through being a coach, you can't give so much of yourself, but you can hold that kind of. And I always call it a container.
Yeah.
So, you know, when I'm working with someone, that we're in our own container, it's a safe space.
Yes.
We can be free to
Yeah.
express, and knowing that, you know, we're in this container and it will stay within the container. So it's that confidentiality piece, isn't it?
Correct.
Knowing that person, knowing that whatever
Yeah.
they say, it's going to stay within that container.
Yeah.
It's not going to seep out. You know, it's
Yes.
not going to come out in any other conversations. I'm not going
Yeah.
to refer back to it in public arena. Where in this container, this is where all of the conversations will
Yes.
stay. And I would say it's the consistency and reliability as well, because, you know, I'm talking about in educational world,
Yeah.
it's so busy. So it's knowing that that person's able to show up and that you're able to show up and meet them where they are. Sometimes I've had coaching plans, you know, like 4:30 after school, and something else has happened. They've met a parent, or by the time they're not in that headspace, and they say, "Oh, Kathleen, can we do it differently?" I was like, "Oh, why don't we just walk? Let's just walk."
Yes.
So it's being able to be flexible, you know. So we just walked and had the conversation. And again, that builds trust, because then they knew that I was there for them regardless.
Yes.
So all of those things, so psychological safety, reliability, the being empathetic, the active listening. I think all of those are components to building trust. And the consistency within that. And obviously confidentiality and being ethical as well, you know.
And I think going back to there, you can build trust, I'm not saying relatively quickly, but by being yourself. And actually, so if I took my biggest values about integrity, so if you say you're going to do something, you do it. So that builds trust quite quickly. And I think the other bit for me, which builds trust, which you touched on, about as a coach, you're there not to judge the person. Let's be really clear. And I remember I met a coach many years ago when I was going through my training, and someone said, "Oh, they're a good coach. You might want to have a chat with them, etc." And we were talking through and that, and I was just saying, "I'm not sure where I want to go with my career of coaching, those kind of things." So just having a chat through. And then the bit for me, where the line was crossed, and the person said to me, "Steve, what you're telling me is you're non-fulfilled in your life." And that was like, that's not what I said. I just said, I'm not sure where I'm going with my coaching. And I think a good coach will summarize lovely language and it be positive, rather than, which I see, unfortunately, some coaches will use it as a fear judgment tactic. So I think reserving judgment, super important. That's hard because we all have our biases and we all have our preferences, and from that point of view. So I think that's really, really good. And I think the other bit about empathy, and I always talk about sympathy, is that you're in the bottom of a cave. And you jump in there with the person and you just stay in the bottom of the cave and you just moan, and that's it. That's sympathy. Whereas empathy is that you're at the top of the cave and you're throwing the rope down, allowing the person to get back out of their own free will. And that's where I always think of people that are empathetic leaders, that have that active listening, truly listen and present, rather than I've got a question I next want to ask. They go with the flow and they're agile, which I really like. If that makes sense. So
I like the point that you made actually about being present, because I think that's important as well. So being able to, you hold the space, but are you present in the space? You can hold the space. And be distracted, but are you present and listening?
Yes.
You know, it's being present, but also having presence.
Yes.
Isn't it?
Correct.
That both things in themselves build trust, don't they? You know, there's a slight change of language there, but it's important. And I came across this what do you call it, formula, David Masters formula, where it was credibility, reliability, and intimacy divided by self-orientation equals trust. And that self-orientation there is about what the person's in it for them, are that person in it for themselves, that selfishness.
Correct.
Yes. So I think that's so important, because you could be, you know, credible, really great at your work, really reliable, really great at intimacy in terms of building those relationships. But if you're in it for yourself, just divide that up. It's all gone. Trust is all gone. So it's that balance, isn't it, of all of those components, because that, and also I think being aware of how you come across, which is why those 360s and all the disc and whatever, understanding yourself and people understanding you and what you know about people understanding is so important for you to develop as yourself. And I just want to go back as well in terms of building relationships and trust. I think one of the key things that we forget as well as coaches or someone that's maybe thinking about going into coaching is that you don't just learn how to be a coach, you learn about yourself.
Correct.
And from that starting point is so crucial, because you can't help others if you don't understand yourself. And I think that's an important thing to just mention at this juncture.
No, perfect. And I think when I was going through my qualification, the best part of it, and I never realised, was when I wrote my notes up afterwards of actually what I learned. And they were, it was imperative that I learned. I went, actually, Steve, you're leading the client. Stop it. Let's get that noted down, what you're doing. So I found that really enriching, just to pause and be self-critical. And then that's not harsh. That's just going, actually, I could have done that better. But I think that's the point of like qualifications and that kind of stuff moving forward. It's not just we're going to teach coaching, it's about real self-awareness. That's imperative. So I think that's absolutely key. So we touched on already about active listening, but what other good qualities would you say that a good mentor or coach would display, or behaviors?
Right. There's so many. I would say, so then I'm going to name a few, but they're no particular order. All are of equal importance.
Yes.
So again, I'm going to go back to that point, the ability to develop themselves first.
Yes.
You cannot be a, inverted commas, successful coach if you have no understanding of yourself. So know thyself. So it's very important that you understand yourself, what your values are actually. And if you understand yourself and your values, then you're able then to be able to, through that chemistry meeting, understand if can you work with that person, is this going to fit. So if you don't know yourself first, you kind of can't work.
Correct.
So while you're understanding yourself, are you able then to kind of be able to meet someone where they're at? Are you open to doing that? Because I think if you don't have that skill, you can't do it. And in fact, that's not even a skill, it's a knowing, isn't it?
Yes.
So you can't, if you don't have that knowing, you cannot then develop the skills of a coach to be an effective coach, in my opinion. Okay. So as a coach, I think you have to embody a developing growth mindset approach. So being able to identify and see how others can develop themselves, and also for yourself, what you said about the reflective practice, which is so important. Afterwards, having that time to kind of reflect on your practice, kind of asking yourself, coaching yourself through those questions. What did I do then? How did that land? When I offered that suggestion, did that person pick up on that? Was I being too leading? Were my questions too many questions? Did I talk a lot? Did I listen actively? Was I listening to hear, or was I listening to respond? Those kind of things. Being able to manage and regulate your own emotions, I think is really important. Because while you're doing regulating and evaluating your own emotions, you're also holding that space and doing it for your client also.
Correct.
Going hand in hand, you've got to be able to do that. I would say, yes, being an active listener, so important. You're not just listening, you're listening to understand. So when I did my training, what was really good is that, the client may come to you with a topic, for example, in coaching, come with a topic, but you're really coaching that person underneath.
Yes.
So you're listening to what they're saying and asking them questions and taking them deeper, like kind of like, I think of it like a nerve, and you're going into the core. Going through it. They're a problem solver as well. So as much as a coach doesn't give you the answers to the problems, you can see the problem. Inverted commas, because see the issue or problem, whatever word you want to put to that, but you're able to solve it. So that ability to identify the issues and evaluate the outcomes. Integrity that you mentioned, and trust, so important. I think you have to be honest with yourself, honest with the client as well. If you can't meet their needs, can you then give them, pass them on to somebody else? Having those morals as well, and those principles is very important for yourself and for the client. So everything that I will mention actually is not just to enable a great coaching session, it's also for that relationship to build that trust. But it's also for you to be able to manage yourself. And because if you can't manage yourself, you can't then be that partner that successful partnership
Yeah.
there for the other person. And
Yeah.
if you think about that, I'm going to be quite, take it even further out. That
Yeah.
works with all relationships, does it not?
Correct.
It works in everything,
Yeah.
You've got to understand yourself first. And the best relationships are, whether it's work, personal, coaching, mentoring, whatever it is, it works best when you have knowledge of yourself, because you know how to show up and know when to push, when to pull, when to challenge, when not to, when it's appropriate to ask that question, It's all of those skills are important. Like I said before, having being present and having presence, because I could be present with you right now, Stephen. I'm here.
Yeah.
I've got no presence. Not going to work, is it?
Yeah. No. Absolutely spot on. No, absolutely spot on.
Important.
Yeah.
So it's showing up. So we know when people say, "Oh, you got to show up. You got to show up." Yeah. What does that mean? It means showing up, being present, being there, holding the space for that person. So does that person know that you're really there with them in that space?
Yeah.
How do they know that? It's because you're actively listening. You're showing that empathy. You're really asking those questions, getting a bit deeper. You're not taking it at the surface level. You're showing the understanding, and everybody wants to be seen and to be heard. So I think that's important. Encouragement as well, healthy encouragement, not just the airy fairy one. Oh yeah, that was great. You did really well. Yeah. That kind of Anthony Robbins. Sorry, but
high five me.
Whoa,
and you just, it's awkward because you go, I don't really like doing that, and you don't. This is awkward. So good.
You've got to kind of encourage them in the style that they're going to feel encouraged by, whether it's through language, whether it's through a metaphor. I really like the way you framed that when you said it made me think of this, and they felt you've really got to understand the person. Humor as well, because I like to laugh. And so I think humor is important, but it's personal to me, because humor doesn't work for everybody.
Correct.
And I think again that comes through having a relationship with that person. And you know when you can like slip in a little, there's a pun or make a link or whatever. So for me, that works. I wouldn't advertise that for everybody, because it can go very wrong. Passion as well. Do you have a passion, really? If you're going to be serving somebody else, you have to have a passion for it. You can't just, it's not coaching is not by numbers here.
No,
it's not a dot to dot. You have to have passion to serve others and have a genuine interest or desire to see others grow. I think that's really, really important. And I'll say for myself, it's embodied in the language that I use and actions, and the words that I choose. Emotional intelligence, again, no particular order, but that's in my head, that's right up there. You've got to have that emotional intelligence to kind of read the situation, know when to offer that question. Is it right now? Knowing the person as I do, will this land? Could I try it? Let me offer it and see. Ask permission. So this is what I was saying about the difference between coaching and mentoring. Ask permission. Coaching is about that kind of guidance. You're asking permission. The trust comes through seeking that permission from your client, which is really important. And that helps to foster the trust and build good rapport. And obviously all of that is under the umbrella of communication. All of those things are held in that kind of, that balloon of communication. It's seen carefully, really, through, or crafted carefully through the questioning. And so all of those things, I think, are very, very important. Again, neither one is more important than the other, but they all hold equal value and are the foundation of what makes a good coaching relationship. So.
And I think our listeners now, whether they're listening on audio or visual, will know that you're a visual person, because we've got bubbles, we've got balloons, we've got mind map, we've got boxes, we've got brain patterns. So I think our audience would definitely go, yeah, she's visual. So from that point of view, so that's beautiful. And I think the bit there to lead into, so it's hard to be a coach, isn't it? You need development. And if you think about what you've just captured, they're all really, really important skills, but they need to be developed. So, a third of the public are born with emotional intelligence, but you can learn it, if that makes sense. So there's bits there. So, and I will move into, because where we're working more through our Institute of Leadership Management program, our coaching and mentoring for educational success, That's coming out. That's going live, and we've deliberately looked at the audience of education to really help those colleagues, because we said there's a need there for coaching and mentoring.
Yeah.
So, what drew you to that, and kind of for the program? What kind of inspired you to kind of work with us and really move that program forward?
Well, really, I think it's about supporting leaders. Now, that sounds so simple, right?
Yeah,
Supporting leaders. Education is going through, or has been actually
yeah,
going through a really testing time.
yeah,
Curriculums have changed, frameworks have changed for Ofsted,
yes,
just the whole framework, the COVID, the way the children have come back, the parents handling parents,
yeah,
leadership structures, money being taken away, budgets. All of that has impacted the
yeah,
way that teachers are feeling within the classroom, the
yes,
way educational leaders are feeling. It is a how can I put this? A cocktail that needs to be refined in order for it to
yes,
taste good for everybody. Okay.
yes,
So this is where coaching and mentoring comes in. So
yeah,
yes, traditionally we have coaching and mentoring for our ECT teachers, like I
yes,
said
yeah,
before. 2 years, they have the coaching and mentoring. Luckily, for some leaders in some schools,
yeah,
they have access to having a coach. Now, that
yeah,
may be paid through via the school, or they may
yeah,
happen to have someone who's done some training.
yes,
This is not common for all schools across the country.
yeah, yeah,
Now, I believe, like I said to you before, that
yeah,
all leaders, all teachers should have access to and have that space really
yes,
to be able to speak about how they're feeling, because it is tough out there.
yeah,
That space, that safety space to be able to discuss things. So, you know, like I say, if I give an example, um, I would say all teachers now are having to manage difficult conversations,
yes,
whether that be with a parent, whether it be
yeah,
with a child. And I know that sounds silly,
yes,
but
yeah,
with a child or with their line manager or
yeah,
head, whatever. Difficult conversations in schools are
yeah,
happening every day,
yeah,
more often than just the
yeah,
normal standard conversations. It is
yeah,
prickly.
yeah,
And I'm saying all of this not to be negative, I'm
yeah,
being a realist.
yes,
So, when it comes to coaching and mentoring for educational success, we need more coaches. We need more
yes,
leaders that are trained to go
yeah,
into schools to be able to offer this service for the people
yes,
that they are working with. It is essential.
yeah,
This is not a nice thing to have.
yeah,
So I'm not interested in this just to feel, oh yeah, this would be great to
yes,
do another training session, to train some more coaches. I'm doing it because I'm passionate about it again,
yes,
which was crucial.
yeah,
I'm doing it because I'm passionate, but I'm doing it because it is needed, and I want to
yes,
see more people getting the support that they need.
yes,
Because I'm sorry, but we can't rely on those that are in, I'm not going to name them, certain positions out there
yeah,
which don't see what's happening on the ground. So
yes,
why not empower people that are working within the schools to be able to offer that service back to the people
yeah,
that are going through it? And like you say, it may be that they do it through mentorship because they've got that experience, or
yeah,
they may do it from coaching. And then so that's why I'm
yeah,
doing this. It's
yeah,
to enable more leaders and teachers to have
yeah,
access to a great quality coach. And this
yeah,
course provides that. It
yes,
provides the essential skills that we've spoken about earlier to
yeah,
enable them to deliver that service,
yes,
important service for the people that they work with.
yeah. And I think just to fit it, the bit where you and I are passionate as well is about it's a internationally recognised qualification. So it's
Yeah,
great and it's a life skill as well. So it's not just for educational success, it's to help outside of work, those kind of bits. But we
yeah.
just kind of recommend it. So, Kathleen, how can people reach out to you, connect with you? What's the best way to kind of connect with you?
So I think the easiest way is on LinkedIn. So just
Yeah,
look me up, Kathleen Cushnie on LinkedIn. And then you can get a link to my
yes,
website. There's also podcasts, Voice and Education podcast, which I deal
yeah,
with a number of series of different aspects of an
yeah,
education. So LinkedIn's the easiest. It's the
yes.
first point of call, really.
Yeah, perfect. And I just like today, I'm just looking at the time, thinking, wow, that's flown by. And I think hopefully our audience have picked up on our passion. So for
Yeah.
coaching and mastering kind of the art of coaching, and really, really important. But also to remember that coaching is not easy. It's a skill.
Mm.
It's a science and a skill. So you've got to put the effort in to be a really good coach to then enhance your colleagues, etc. So, what comes with that effort is reward. So that's about putting up the time and effort from that point of view. But what I would say is reach out to Kathleen or myself about kind of our ILM coaching and mentoring for educational success. Really good course tailored for the education system. So that's why we've done it from that point of view. So what I wanted to say is just a huge thank you today, Kathleen. Really, really appreciate your time. And I know it's half term, so I really appreciate it. But also thank you so much for your passion today, and also your kind of visual aesthetics, which I loved from that point of view. And I think we finished on was like a cocktail, I remember. So we got a cocktail to finish off at the end. So can I just say a huge thank you for joining today. Super excited to be partnering with you. But here's to a really good 2025.
Yes, cheers to that. Still got the cocktail in the hand.
Got the cocktail in hand.
Yeah,
Excellent.
thanks, Stephen.
Thank you very much, Kathleen.